They didn't say it outright at first. They circled it, softened it, wrapped it in words that sounded reasonable enough to hide what they actually meant. "It's just going to be simpler this way," my mother said over the phone. "Your sister wants the day to be perfect." Perfect, apparently, didn't include my daughter. I remember standing in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the crayon drawing taped to the fridge. A lopsided heart, two stick figures holding hands, me and her. "How is it simpler?" I asked. There was a pause. Then my sister's voice cut in, tight, rehearsed. "We talked about it as a family. It's not appropriate for certain situations." Certain situations. My daughter was 8 years old. My name is Claire Donovan. I was 36, a licensing coordinator for a healthcare firm, married, stable, the kind of person my family liked to describe as reliable. My daughter, Maya, had been adopted 3 years earlier, after spending most of her early childhood moving between homes that never kept her. When we adopted her, my family congratulated us, posted photos, told everyone how proud they were. But pride, I learned, has limits. "What situations?" I asked, already knowing the answer. My sister exhaled sharply. "People will have questions. We don't want distractions." Distractions, like a child existing. "So you're banning her from the wedding," I said. "No one's banning anyone," my mother rushed in. "We just think it would be better if she didn't attend." I felt something go very still inside me. "Then I won't attend either," I said. Silence, not shock, not concern. Calculation. "Well," my sister said slowly, "that's your choice." I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, Maya sat cross-legged on the living room floor, carefully placing stickers onto a card she'd been working on for days. "It's for Auntie's wedding," she said proudly. "See, I spelled her name right." I swallowed. She looked up at me, eyes bright. "Do you think she'll like it?" I knelt beside her and smoothed her hair back. "She will." That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either, because in that moment, as my daughter smiled up at me, so certain she belonged, I understood something my family hadn't thought through. They believed this was about optics, about comfort, about avoiding awkward conversations. What they didn't realize was that by drawing that line, they'd forced me to choose. And once I chose my daughter, everything else was about to change. I didn't tell Maya right away, not because I was avoiding the truth, but because I was buying time. Time to figure out how to explain something that should never need explaining to a child. The next few days passed in fragments. Wedding group texts I muted, emails about seating charts I deleted without opening, a dress hanging untouched in the closet, tags still on it like proof I'd once been included. Maya, meanwhile, was planning. "What color should my shoes be?" she asked one morning at breakfast. "Do weddings have ice cream?" I watched her stir her cereal with complete trust in the world around her, in the adults who had smiled at her, hugged her, told her how lucky she was. I wondered how many of those hugs had been conditional. That night, my mother called again. "Your sister is upset," she said. "She feels like you're making this about you." I closed my eyes. She made it about my daughter. "No one said that," my mother replied quickly. "You're reading into it." I let the silence stretch. Finally, I said, "Then say it clearly. Tell me why Maya isn't invited." Another pause, longer this time. "Well," my mother said carefully, "she's not biologically part of the family, and people notice those things." There it was, the sentence they dressed up in softer language, finally standing on its own. "She's my child," I said. "And we understand that," she replied, "but this is your sister's day." "So my daughter is an inconvenience." "No one is saying that." "You are," I said quietly. "You just don't like how it sounds." She bristled. "You're being dramatic." I almost laughed, because nothing about this felt dramatic. It felt precise, deliberate, cruel in the way that hides behind politeness. I told Maya the next day. We sat on the couch together, her legs tucked under her, her head resting against my arm. I chose my words carefully, like they were glass. "Auntie's wedding is going to be very small," I said, "and we're not going to go." She was quiet for a moment. Then, did I do something wrong? That question never gets easier. "No," I said immediately. "Never. This has nothing to do with you." She nodded slowly. "Okay." Too easily. Children who've learned not to expect much accept exclusion faster than they should. She picked up her stickers again and went back to her card like the conversation hadn't cracked something open inside her. But it had. Inside me. That night, after she was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with the invitation in front of me. Gold lettering. Thick paper. My family's name printed neatly across the front. As if it belonged to all of us. I realized then that they hadn't just banned my daughter from a wedding. They had tested whether I would tolerate it, whether I would show up smiling, childless, pretending everything was fine. They assumed I'd choose peace. They assumed I'd compartmentalize. They assumed I'd teach my daughter, silently, where she ranked. They were wrong. I folded the invitation carefully and slid it back into its envelope. Because if my daughter wasn't family enough to be seen, then they were about to learn what it felt like to be excluded by choice. I didn't argue with them again. That was the first thing they didn't expect. I didn't send long messages. I didn't post anything vague online. I didn't recruit allies. I simply stopped participating. The RSVP stayed unanswered. The group chats stayed muted. The dress stayed in the closet until I returned it, tags still attached. And then I started making different arrangements. Maya's therapist had once told me something that came back to me that week. Children don't remember every event, she'd said. They remember how safe they felt. So instead of letting my daughter sit at home wondering why she wasn't wanted, I planned something she would remember for the rest of her life. I booked a short trip for the same weekend as the wedding. Nothing extravagant, just enough. A small hotel near the coast, a place with a heated pool and a boardwalk, a space where Maya could exist loudly, fully, without being managed. When I told her, her face lit up. "Just us?" "Just us," I said. She hugged me so tightly it took my breath away. The fallout came quickly. My sister called first. "So you're really not coming?" she said flatly. "No," I replied. "You're choosing to make a statement." "I'm choosing my daughter?" she scoffed. "This is going to make things awkward." "For who?" I asked. She didn't answer. My mother tried next. "You're punishing everyone," she said. "This isn't how family works." I kept my voice even. Family doesn't exclude a child and expect the parent to smile about it. "She's adopted," my mother snapped. "You know it's different." I felt something settle in me then, heavy, solid, final. "No," I said. "You just treat her differently." Silence. Because there was no softer way to say it. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in a hotel room with white curtains and sunlight spilling across the floor. Maya ran straight to the window. "We can see the water." She laughed as if nothing in the world was wrong. And maybe, for her, nothing was. While my family gathered for photos and vows and speeches about unity, I sat at a small cafe table with my daughter, watching her eat pancakes shaped like stars. No side glances, no whispered explanations, no pretending she belonged somewhere she was being tolerated at best. Later that afternoon, I got a text from my sister. "People are asking where you are." I looked at Maya, hair still damp from the pool, cheeks pink from the sun. Then I typed back, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." I turned my phone off after that. Because whatever happened next didn't need my commentary. It needed my absence. We came home from the trip lighter than we left, not because the situation had resolved, but because it had clarified itself. Maya fell asleep in the car on the drive back, her head resting against the window, sunburned just enough to remind me she'd laughed the entire weekend. That mattered more than any wedding photo. The fallout waited. Group messages resumed. Carefully worded texts from relatives who wanted to understand without choosing sides. My sister sent one final message the day after the wedding. "I hope you're happy. You made a statement." I stared at it for a long moment before replying. I protected my child. She never responded. The change didn't come all at once. It came quietly, in the way invitations stopped arriving the same way, in how conversations became guarded, in how my mother began asking instead of assuming. They didn't apologize, not fully, but they adjusted, and that told me everything I needed to know about where the power had always been. One night, weeks later, Maya asked me, "Why didn't we go to the wedding?" I didn't soften the truth this time. "Because some people thought they could decide if you belonged," I said, "and I didn't agree with them." She considered that. "Do I belong with you?" "Always." She smiled, satisfied, and went back to coloring. That was the moment I understood what this story would really be about for her someday. Not rejection, but certainty. My family thought banning my adopted daughter from a wedding would keep things simple. What it actually did was draw a line they couldn't erase. I didn't yell, I didn't beg, I didn't ask for permission. I chose my child in a way that couldn't be misunderstood. And if there's one thing I've learned since then, it's this. Anyone who asks you to make your child smaller for their comfort is already telling you where you stand. I listened, and I stayed exactly where I belonged.